Hey everybody, I am here. Going to do a little bit of a draft review in this video. I know some of you have mentioned you like the old Yahoo grades and the draft grades, and Sleeper doesn't do that, so I figure what the hell, I'll do one here based on my non-expert opinion, just for fun, just so I can look back later in the season and see how wrong I was about everybody's team. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the draft board. We're just going to go team by team. I'll try to keep this quick because I know a lot of you don't have much of an attention span. So like I said, we'll go one by one. I'll factor in the keepers as well. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about what I thought of everybody's keeper picks. I know for most of you, I ended up probably making a suggestion, so I'm kind of grading myself there. But regardless, we'll talk about each of those and what I like and don't like. So let's get started here. Team 1, this is Holly, who is, I believe her new team name is Haloti Tua. So Holly kept Jonathan Taylor. That was her only keeper. She drafted Taylor in the 3rd round last year, so he costs her a 2nd round pick this year, which for her was the last pick in the 2nd, so that's pretty good. I think that's good value for JT. Jonathan Taylor, obviously not RJT. He was going to be probably a 1st round pick otherwise, so getting him a round later is not too bad, especially when he's going to be a bell cow. He's healthy this season. He should be great. Also, she coupled that with Christian McCaffrey, so she's got easily probably the best running back combination in the league, more than likely. There's a couple people who might have better combinations thanks to their keepers, but to me that's probably the best. Looking at the rest of her team here, so this is a 3 wide receiver league, 2 flex obviously. So her starting receivers are probably going to be the ones she drafted in order here, right? Ayuk, Allen, and Kirk. Keenan Allen's on a new team this year with a rookie quarterback. He's also got a lot of target competition in DJ Moore and potentially the rookie Rome Odunze. That said, Keenan dropped to the 4th round this year, almost to the 5th round. He's probably going to do better than that. Keenan Allen's been just a perennial excellent receiver in the NFL and for fantasy, so he's probably going to exceed everybody's fantasy expectations and beat his ADP value, so I actually like Keenan Allen. Brandon Ayuk, he could be on a different team. I think he's going to stay with the Niners this season personally, so he'll be very similar to how he was last year. Boomer bust some weeks. He'll probably finish in the top 15, top 20 in the receiver position. Christian Kirk should be pretty good. Calvin Ridley's gone. They did draft a rookie receiver who's highly touted, but Christian Kirk should, in theory, I know he's hurt a little bit, but he should be pretty good. So all around, I would say her receivers actually aren't too bad. I would say once we get past her starting 2 running backs and her starting 3 receivers, it gets a little murky. 3 quarterbacks is probably a little overkill. I don't mind a backup, but a 3rd is probably too much, especially when our benches are only 5 deep. So that's cost her a little bit of depth here. So at running back, she's only got Zach Moss and Chase Brown at the position. That's a little dicey, especially since they're both on the same team. Only one of them is likely ever going to have value in any given week. I personally like the Chase Brown pick, but I don't necessarily like the Chase Brown pick coupled with Zach Moss. David Njoku's fine at tight end. Honestly, I feel like once you get out of the top 5 tight ends, it's all just a shit shoot. The rest of our depth, Sutton, Gabe Davis, Josh Downs, Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson just got traded, so who knows what he'll be. As far as our quarterbacks, I know I said she has 3 of them. I don't particularly like Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers, but Anthony Richardson could be elite. We don't know. He only played 2 games last season, and he was really good in both those. So I guess we'll see. I would say I would give her a team probably a B- based on the keeper and based on her picks. So let's move on to Raven 1979. This is Scott. So Scott's picks, or keepers rather, were Drake London and Breece Hall. So Drake London cost him a 4th round. Breece Hall cost him a 6th. Breece Hall in the 6th round as a keeper is fantastic value. He would have been a 1st round pick for sure had he not been kept. So being able to keep him for a 6th round is fantastic. You absolutely cannot beat that. And then he coupled that by being able to actually draft Tyreek Hill. He took Debo in the 2nd round, which is probably a little early for Debo, but not much. He may have been able to get him on the turn, but he got Josh Allen instead, which obviously Josh Allen's been probably quarterback number 1 for 3 of the last 4 years or so. So he started Tyreek, Debo, and Drake London, obviously being one of his other keepers. I think those are 3 great receivers. Drake London could be fantastic with Kirk Cousins as quarterback in Atlanta. I can't tell if my camera's freaking out here. If it is, I apologize. Then he's got running back. He's got Breece Hall, Eckler, Jalen Warren. I don't like the Pittsburgh running backs personally, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. One of them's going to be decent, him or Najee. They're probably going to run the ball a lot this year since their quarterbacks are still terrible. Eckler, new team. He wasn't that great last year, but, change of scenery. Maybe healed from an injury. He might be better. And then he's got a bunch of depth pieces here. Shakir and Rashid Shaheed and Jacoby Myers. All guys I don't love. Maybe Shakir in Buffalo since Diggs and Gabe Davis are now gone. They have some potential. I do like that he grabbed Kirk Cousins in the last round as a backup there, potentially to stack with Drake London. I think that's a cool pick. He went double tight end here, too. Again, I don't really like doubling up on any of the onesie positions, onesie being the quarterback or tight end, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I do like Evan Engram as a tight end. I'd give him a B here for his draft and his keepers, maybe a B+ because I really like the Breece Hall keeper pick. Let's move on to Ringo Starr here, our newest member. That's John Sr. replacing Ashley. Ashley is now my co-manager, by the way. So, from Ashley's prior year roster, John kept Kyler Murray and Kyren Williams for a 9th and a 10th round pick. Kyren for a 10th is also awesome value. He was probably going in the 2nd or 3rd in most drafts, so to keep him for a 10th is fantastic. He's probably going to be the bell cow running back in L.A. Kyler Murray, again, he was coming off an injury last year. He didn't play a whole lot. In the games he did play, he was pretty good. I would expect a lot more from him this year, especially now that he's got the phenom wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. On the roster there. I think Kyler Murray is gonna be an elite quarterback this year for fantasy, probably at least top 5. So again, to get him for a 9th rounder is fantastic too. And it's funny he still took Dak Prescott in the 6th round, but that's okay. Dak's really good too. So otherwise, at receiver, he's got Jamar Chase. Love that pick. Can't go wrong there. If Chase and Burrow are healthy, then that's always going to be an elite combination. Kupp. I'm really, I think Kupp's still going to have a fantastic year. I know he was hurt last year a little bit, but I think he's going to be back to form this year. Him and Stafford have that connection regardless of whether Puka's there or not. Godwin, Godwin's hit or miss. He's probably a decent wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I don't love that he's only got 4 receivers. Again, this is a 3-receiver league with 2 flex, so not a whole lot of depth there, kind of skinny position. I do like Josh Palmer a lot. I think Josh Palmer's got the potential to be the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers now that Keenan is gone. Keenan and Mike Williams are gone. So he could very well be number 1. I banked on Ladd McConkey hopefully taking over as the number 1 there, and I drafted him accordingly. But it could truly be Josh Palmer. So I like his 4 receivers, I really do. At running back, he's got Ramondre, besides Kyren Williams, that is. Ramondre, who I like. I don't know if I like Ramondre in the 2nd. That seems a little bit of a reach. Gus Edwards for the Chargers, yeah. I know Greg Roman's there. They're going to run the ball a lot probably, but how much work Gus Edwards is going to get, I'm not sure yet. Tajay Spears, I do like him now that Derrick Henry has left Tennessee. And then he's got Zach Charbonnet, who's really just a backup to Kenneth Walker as far as I'm concerned. He also went 3 tight ends here. Again, don't love that. 2 at most, I would say, for any of the onesie positions personally, especially when the last one's Chiga Okonkwo, who's going to be borderline useless probably. Same with Tyler Conklin. I would expect very little out of him. I do like the Kittle pick. I think Kittle's always got the potential to have week-winning weeks, where he puts up 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever. So otherwise, I think I'm going to give, the keepers alone plus Jamar Chase plus Kupp, I think make his team really good. I'd probably give it a C+ or B-, just because, again, I don't like the, he probably could have taken, I'm not sure who else he could have grabbed here in the 6 besides Dak, but I'm not sure I would have burned a pick on a quarterback this high after keeping Kyler Murray, and I would have probably taken a couple of flyers where some of these tight ends are down here. So we'll call it a B- though, just because I like some of his other picks. All right, let's move on to Dan here. Oh, hey, it's Dan. So Dan's keepers were Trey McBride for a 10th round pick, tight end from the Cardinals. I like Trey McBride. I think he's got potential to be potentially top 3, if not number 1 overall tight end. I think as Kelsey gets a little bit older, you're going to see some of these younger guys step in and possibly take over that number 1 position. Otherwise, he started with Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, and Alvin Kamara. That's real high T. I like that. A lot of running back power there. I also like all 3 of those running backs. Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry are on new teams this year. Derrick Henry's obviously with us. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to have at least 10 touchdowns. At least, I'm sure, 1,000 rushing yards, I'm sure. He won't get used as much as he got in Tennessee, but I think his usage will be more effective. Kamara is going to be a PPR monster, as he always has been. He'll get upwards of 100 targets probably. Derek Carr loves dump-offs, so he's going to be fantastic. Joe Mixon could be a similar situation, could get a ton of dump-offs from C.J. Stroud. I think he's going to be highly useful there in Houston. I don't think he's got a whole lot of competition for touches in the backfield. So I think all three of those picks are going to be fantastic. As far as receivers, he's got George Pickens, Jaden Reed, and Jordan Addison as his first three receivers drafted. George Pickens, I'm not sure. I don't particularly love. I like the player. I don't like the situation in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to try to, run the clock with the defense there, really grind it out. So I'm not sure how much he'll have good weeks, bad weeks, but as your wide receiver one, don't love it. Jaden Reed, this is a sophomore for Green Bay. The Green Bay situation at the receiver position has been a little bit murky. They've got kind of four good receivers there, and Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Dontavian Wicks. So I feel like you're going to have weeks where these guys just rotate who the top guy is. I do think Jaden Reed's probably the most talented of the four, so he's got the potential there. Jordan Addison, he's got some sort of legal issues happening. I don't know if it's going to interfere with the season at all. He is the wide receiver 2 for the Vikings, who now have Sam Darnold as their quarterback, which is obviously a significant downgrade from Kirk Cousins last year. So we'll see. All three of these picks to me are highly risky. They could all bust. But if they all hit, then he's going to have a great wide receiver core. He took Jordan Love as quarterback. I do like Jordan Love. I think he's going to have a great kind of sophomore year. I know he's been in the league now for about 5 years, but I consider last year to be his rookie year since it was his first year starting. We got Zeke, Dobbins as depth pieces here. Khalil Herbert. I do like Dobbins as a depth piece. I'd rather have him over Gus Edwards, who went 4 rounds earlier. I think Dobbins could still have some juice. I mean, he's younger than Gus. Obviously coming off a couple devastating injuries, so it's a matter of whether he can stay healthy. We got Mike Williams in here. We got Jalen Polk, the rookie receiver for New England. I don't know that any of the New England players, besides maybe Ramondre, are going to be worth owning, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world there. These are late-round picks, so they're just flyers. Again, second tight end, not really sure. I see a lot of people with backup tight ends, sometimes 3 tight ends, 2 and 3 quarterbacks. I mean, I was just keep in mind we only have 5 bench spots plus the IR, so we are starting a lot of skilled players and receivers and running backs. So you tend to need more of those, but it is what it is. I'm going to give Dan an A- here because I really like his running backs. I like his quarterback pick. I like Trey McBride at the tight end. I think his onesie positions are locked up. Only an A- because I'm not sure about his receivers. If they hit, though, he's going to have a great team. All right, let's move on to Melissa here. Melissa kept Michael Pittman and Raheem Mostert. Not the sexiest keeper picks, but I think she's got really, really good value on them. Mostert for a 12th is great. He's obviously going to be, him and Achane are going to split carries in Miami. He's getting old. He's probably, 31 or so, 32 already. Wow. So that's kind of old for a running back, but he's still really fast. He's still really talented. He's going to get a lot of work, probably get some goal line work. So I think he's great. He's got, good RB2 upside. And then Michael Pittman, great receiver. Anthony Richardson, we don't know really what he's like as a passer. He wasn't the most accurate in college. In fact, he's only started 17 games as a quarterback since high school. So Richardson is still very green, and whether he can support Michael Pittman as a wide receiver 1 is unknown. But Michael Pittman is not Melissa's first receiver, so that's okay. Keeping him for a 6 is great value, especially since he doesn't have to be the number 1. She's got Mike Evans and T. Higgins ahead of him, both of whom I love. Mike Evans is going to have another 1,000-yard season, as he always does. He'll probably have upwards of 10 touchdowns. T. Higgins is prime. He's looking for another contract somewhere next year. Joe Burrow's healthy. Same thing as Jamar Chase. T. Higgins could have a great year. And then she took Christian Watson and Tyler Lockett. Other players I actually really like. Again, Christian Watson's the other murky Green Bay receiver, but he's had some good spurts in his short career. Tyler Lockett's always been consistent, so to get him in the 10th, I think that's really good value there too. So at running back, Melissa's got Bijan and Kenneth Walker. I love that. I love those 2 picks. Bijan to me is one of 3 running backs that can finish number 1 overall. It's Christian McCaffrey, it's Bijan, it's Breece Hall. I think Bijan with Kirk Cousins there might have the potential to do it more so than the other 2, especially with McCaffrey getting older and getting some mileage on there. Kenneth Walker I love. Seahawks still love to run the ball. He is their primary running back there. If he gets involved in the passing game, he'll be even greater, or better, excuse me. Jerome Ford, I like this pick too. He's the starting running back in Cleveland until Nick Chubb comes back, and even then, we don't know what Nick Chubb coming back is going to look like, right? Because after that injury he sustained last year, he could really be basically out of juice at this point. So Jerome Ford could be a season-long starter. Last year, I owned him most of the season. He was an RB2 for just about every week. He'll get you consistent 10-plus points, which is not bad sometimes. Gibson, depth piece there in New England. It's probably a throwaway, but Stafford is a backup down here. So I'm going to give Melissa the best grade so far. I think she deserves an A+ here. I really like. I don't have a problem. She's got Kyle Pitts at the tight end position again, with Kirk Cousins there in Atlanta now. Kyle Pitts could truly break out. So in Joe Burrow, I've got no issue with anybody on her roster. I think it's good top to bottom. So I'm going to give her A+ there. All right, let's move on to Chad here. So Chad, man, 5 of his first 6 picks here are receivers. Now Chad chose to keep DJ Moore and Devon Achane. So DJ Moore cost him a 3rd, and Devon Achane cost a 9th. I mean, a 9th round pick for Devon is really, really good value. He's a player that was probably going first, second round turn, somewhere around that. So to get him for a 9th is fantastic. DJ Moore is probably going in the 2nd, so he's probably getting a bit of a discount there as well. So I like both those keepers. Those are great. He started Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God. I think I mentioned there's 3 running backs I think could finish first overall. I think there's probably 4 maybe receivers that could finish first of all. It's Tyreek, it's Jamar, it's CD, and it's Amon-Ra. Maybe you could throw A.J. Brown in there. And I think, he's going to run it back. It's going to be another good year in Detroit. Let's get the rapport with Jared Goff, who he stacked as quarterback, so I like that. DJ Moore, Amari Cooper's great. He's always been consistent. If Deshaun Watson can, support that wide receiver 1 there, then Amari's a great 3rd receiver. Xavier Worthy, rookie for Kansas City, super fast. Haven't seen a whole lot of him yet, so don't really know. I mean, Rashee Rice is probably the wide receiver 1 there, but as his 4th receiver, that's pretty good value. He also went with a rookie Brian Thomas Jr., receiver for Jacksonville. Again, Calvin Ridley's gone. Targets have to go somewhere. It's probably going to be him, Evan Ingram, and Christian Kirk, so I like that pick. Dalton Schultz, the Dr. Schultz here, that's fine. He's probably going to see some work, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in Houston now with Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins, so I'm not sure how much work he'll get, but again, after the first 5 tight ends, it's just a crapshoot anyways. He's also got Josh Jacobs at running back, so Josh Jacobs and Devon Achane are going to round out his 2 starting running backs. I think Josh Jacobs is primed for a pretty good year. Blake Corum, backup running back for the Rams. If Kyron stays healthy, I'm not sure Blake Corum is going to get a ton of work. I know Blake Corum is regarded as a top running back prospect in this year's draft, but Kyron was pretty good last year, so I'm not sure that a rookie's going to unseat him. And he's got Adonai, I don't actually know how you say his first name, Adonai Mitchell, rookie receiver for Indy. I wouldn't expect a whole lot out of him. Anthony Richardson, this is effectively his rookie year. Rookie receiver. Mitchell, I know, had some question marks in his draft profile, so I'm not sure really how good he's going to be as an NFL caliber receiver yet. But 11th round pick, you're just going for upside. I'd give Chad an A+ here based on his draft. Receivers are solid. I think running backs are solid. He's probably needs a little bit of depth there. Maybe I'll bump you down, Chad, to just an A, just because you're running back. If you get injury to if Achane goes down again because he's so small, you might be screwed. I'm not sure Chandler and Corum can fill the gaps. You probably have to play the waiver wire there. Ben Sano, kind of like that as a I don't generally like the backup tight end, but I think there's a lot of upside there with Sano. I know he was regarded as one of the top tight end prospects in this draft. So I kind of like that as a sleeper late pick. Baker, it's kind of interesting taking that there. Surprised you took a backup quarterback, to be honest. All right, let's move on to Justin. Justin chose to keep, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. So Gibbs for a 3rd and Laporta for a 13th. Laporta for a 13th is maybe the best value in the entire draft. He's the guy that I think has the highest potential to be tight end 1 on the season, up there with Kels and Kittle and Andrews and Dalton Kincaid to a slightly lesser extent. He was obviously, I think he may have been the tight end 1 last year, or the tight end 2. He was up there. He was top 3. Now he's going into his 2nd season. I think he's just going to be fed more targets. I think he's going to be fantastic. So that's really good value for Justin right there. Jahmyr Gibbs in the 3rd is also good value. He was probably going in the 1st or 2nd round, I would say, in most drafts. I know Justin wasn't too excited about keeping him, but I think that's a really good pick. So looking at his other running backs here, he took Swift, who's now with Chicago. Nick Chubb, who, he's on IR to start the season, which I think we all expected based on the injury. So he's not going to play for at least 4 weeks. But I think realistically, he's probably not playing for potentially longer period than that, especially if they're getting adequate production out of Jerome Ford and Deonta Foreman and whoever else they got in the backfield over there. I took Jonathan Brooks, but I think he's already dropped in exchange for somebody else. And he also took Keaton Mitchell, who's, I don't know if we're going to even see him this season. If we do, it might be closer to the playoffs. So I don't love. I mean, Brooks is gone. I shouldn't be judging his draft based on a player that's no longer on his roster. But I do want to point that out in terms of running back depth here. He has virtually none. Brooks is off his roster. Keaton Mitchell is not starting the season. Chubb's not starting the season. So he's got 2 running backs. It's about as thin as it gets. I think Gibbs was even dealing with an injury already in the preseason. Swift is fine, but Swift is kind of a guy that's somewhat disappointed in most of his fantasy career. He was always highly regarded. I think people thought he should be doing better than he is, but he usually failed. And now he's on a new team, rookie quarterback. He's got 3 star receivers. Probably the fact that the quarterback's a rookie actually probably helps him. Likely going to use Swift as a safety valve more often than not. Should be a better offense. So we'll see. Let's talk about his quarterbacks now. He took Caleb Williams, speaking of rookie quarterback for the Chicago Bears. He also took Justin Herbert in the following rounds. Kind of interesting choice there to take both those guys. I get it, though. Caleb Williams is the upside pick, right? That's the, hey, if he hits, he might hit really hard. Herbert's kind of the backup in case Caleb Williams fizzles out in his first year. Although Herbert is a bit of a risky pick, too. Coming off injury, lost Keenan and Mike Williams. The team is kind of in shambles a little bit to begin with, so not really sure what to make of that. We'll talk about the receivers. He's got A.J. Brown. Love that pick. Kind of sniped me there. Actually, I would have preferred A.J. Brown over Justin Jefferson. Malik Neighbors, rookie receiver for the Giants, often regarded in the same or talked about in the same conversation as Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of draft prospects. Rome Odunze, another highly touted rookie receiver, also for the Bears. Justin seems to be stacking Bears here. I just happened to notice that with Swift, Odunze, and Caleb Williams. So putting a lot of rabbits in one hat there. We'll see if that pans out. He's also got Deontay Johnson, who's now in Carolina. I'm not sure what to make of that. I imagine the Panthers are still going to be terrible. But if Bryce Young takes a step forward, it will be probably because Deontay is there, in part. In which case Deontay is probably going to pay off. So we'll see about that. Jameson Williams there. I do like this pick. I was kind of eyeballing him as well at the pick right before this, but ultimately decided against it. Rashad Bateman is probably going to be cut after a week or two. Not to say he's not a good player, but I don't really buy the Ravens receivers for fantasy purposes outside of Mark Andrews. And then again, he took another tight end here, likely, which that to me is really just a bye week fill in, or in case Laporta gets hurt. So probably could have taken a flyer on somebody else there, maybe. Again, I don't love the backup tight end thing that virtually everybody but myself has seemingly done. Holly didn't do it either. I'm going to give Justin. Let's do a B here. I'm going to downgrade you, Justin. I'm going to call it a B-. I don't like your running back depth. And your quarterbacks are a little bit questionable. I think you're really strong at receiver. I think you're really strong at tight end. And then I think that's about it. There's a lot of question marks everywhere else, but we'll see. On to me here. Obviously, this is tough to grade myself here. You're going to have a lot of built-in bias, right? My keepers were Tank Dell for a 13th and Puka Nacua for a 10th. Puka Nacua, as Colin likes to say. Great value there, too, I think, personally. Puka Nacua was a guy who was going in the first or second round in drafts this year, so to keep him for a 10th is great. Tank Dell was probably going in the 5th round, I would say, 4th or 5th round. So I'm getting him for a 13th. Tank Dell's probably not the first receiver in Houston. Diggs is now there. It is a competition for targets probably to some degree, or it's probably going to be. I do think Tank Dell established himself, though. He had a great rookie season last year before his injury. I think he's going to get more playing time. I think he's earned more targets. So, I have high hopes for him. Puka Nakua's rookie season speaks for itself. Don't really need to talk about that. I took Justin Jefferson to start. I didn't love that pick. I do love the player. I don't love the situation now, especially since Sam Darnold is the quarterback there. I don't know that Justin Jefferson can really finish as a top 5 receiver, but I'm betting on the talent over the situation here. I also took Jalen Waddle, Ladd McConkey, rookie for the Chargers, JSN, second-year receiver for the Seahawks. Dontavian Wicks, second-year receiver for Green Bay, and then a flyer on another Rams receiver who will probably get dropped at some point. So running back, I started with ETN. I went James Conner, Old Man Conner in Arizona. I went with Javonte Williams, Chuba Hubbard, Braylon Allen. I went Brock Bowers, rookie tight end for Vegas. I kind of punted that position. I don't really like this pick. I know he's a little bit banged up. He was, I believe, the top tight end prospect in this year's draft. But rookie tight ends rarely pan out. Kincaid last year and Laporta last year are kind of the exceptions to that rule. But kind of hoping Bowers can run it back, do something similar. But it's going to be a mediocre offense, so I'm not really expecting much. I'd probably give myself, I got Jalen Hurts as a quarterback here too. Probably give myself a B here. Tight end question marks. I think my receiving core is going to be pretty good. I think Puka, Tank, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle right there is really solid, and then some of my other guys, have the potential to hit. I'm kind of thin at running back. ETN I like. James Conner I do like. I think he's going to get a lot of work in Arizona. Javonte I don't love. He's been basically hurt his entire career. And when he hasn't been hurt, he hasn't looked all that great. And Denver is also not all that good of a team. So I kind of only have 2 quality starting running backs, kind of in a similar situation to Justin here. Chuba Hubbard is a starting running back for Carolina, but that means nothing. Braylon Allen's going to be the backup to Breece Hall. So that means kind of nothing too. So I think B is fair here. Good quarterback, good receivers, and then kind of questionable tight end and running back depth. Let's move on to Madison here. M. Deegan. Her keepers were, look at my list here, James Cook and Rashee Rice. So James Cook cost her 7th. Rashee Rice cost her a 10th. Rashee Rice, he finished somewhere in the top 10 to end the season last year for the last 8 weeks or so of the season. He became Patrick Mahomes' favorite target behind Travis Kelce. He got into some legal trouble in the offseason, but I don't think that's going to affect him for the 2024 season. I think he'll be able to play it out. So I think that's really good value there. James Cook I also think is really good value in the 7th. I think he was probably going much higher than that. I think again, Diggs and Gabe Davis being gone in Buffalo, I think is gonna push a lot of work towards James Cook and Dalton Kincaid in particular. Maybe a little bit towards our rookie Keon Coleman. So I would expect a really good season for James Cook. I think he's a talented player. So I like her keeper picks a lot. She started the draft with Olave and Devontae Adams. I think those are good picks. If Olave can, I think Olave is, again, it's a talent, not a situation thing, right? Where he's got the skills, but he's got Derek Carr throwing the ball to him, who missed him a lot last year. They just couldn't connect. If they remedied that at all, then hopefully the situation is better. Devontae Adams, kind of a similar situation. Not the best quarterback there in Vegas now with Aiden O'Connell or whoever it's going to be. We'll see about that. Calvin Ridley, I like that pick. I was hoping to get him, but I got sniped. I think in Tennessee, there's really not a whole lot of competition there. They just don't have a lot of quality receivers there since A.J. Brown left. I don't think Treylon Burks is it. I don't think any of the other guys they have is really it. So I would expect a lot of work for him. I don't think Will Levis is a particularly good quarterback in Tennessee, but he can probably sling the ball, and that's kind of Calvin Ridley's game. So she also took Hopkins, so I don't like the back-to-back Tennessee receiver picks. I mean, realistically, you don't want to start both these guys every week. And you're probably going to have trouble figuring out which one's the one to start unless DeAndre Hopkins proves that he's just kind of fallen off the cliff to start the season. Jerry Jeudy is also on a new team this year. I've never liked Jeudy in general. At running back, she's got Aaron Jones, David Montgomery. We already talked about James Cook, and then Jalen Wright, the rookie running back for Miami. I do like Jalen Wright, but he's going to be behind Achane. He's going to be behind Mostert, so he's not going to get a whole lot of play. But as a late round flyer, I do like that a lot. Aaron Jones, I don't love. Minnesota's offense is going to be crappy. Aaron Jones is older. They're going to probably work him in with Ty Chandler and whoever else they got. David Montgomery, I kind of consider him the backup to Gibbs, especially this year. I know he got a lot of playing time last year, but I don't foresee as much this year as long as Gibbs is healthy. So it's probably a weak RB2, but it's still fine. James Cook is probably RB1 here on her roster. Brock Purdy, I do like at quarterback. I think that's good value in the 9th round. He was top 10 to finish the season last year, I believe. So he's not going to probably win you your season, but he's probably not going to burn you too hard. And then she took Travis Kelce at tight end. I do like that in the 3rd round. I think that's really good value. I'm sure he'll have another great season. So I'm going to give Madison an A here. I like the tight end. I like the quarterback value. I like James Cook. I like Rashee Rice. I think she's got some solid receivers, solid running backs, not a whole lot of depth there. But I think she's definitely going to be competitive based on this roster alone. So let's talk about Kate's team. Kate picked in the 10th position here, Kate Chin. She chose to keep CeeDee Lamb and Pacheco. CeeDee Lamb cost her a 1st. Isaiah Pacheco cost her a 7th. When she initially told me she was keeping CeeDee, I didn't love it because she's really not getting any value there. CeeDee cost a 1st. Or rather, he would have cost a 1st if somebody was drafting him this year. But she drafted him in the 2nd last year, so she's keeping him for her 1st. But when I thought about it more, CeeDee would have gone in probably the top 3, top 4 picks. So to keep him in the 10th spot is pretty good, especially when, again, he's one of the guys I think could finish as the wide receiver 1 on the season. I think he's probably in that category with Tyreek and Jamar and Amon-Ra and maybe A.J. Brown. So to get him in a 3 wide receiver league as a 10th pick I think is really good. Same with Pacheco. I think Pacheco is going in probably the 3rd round. So to keep him for a 7th, he's going to be RB1 for the Chiefs. Going to get a ton of work. They ran the ball a lot at the end of the season. The Chiefs did. So I would expect that to continue. Outside of that, Shook Barkley. Love Barkley. He's on the Eagles now. I think he's going to be great. Jalen Hurts is going to vulture some of his touchdowns, but I think Barkley's going to have a better offensive line than he ever had in New York. I think he's going to have more scoring opportunities, even with Jalen Hurts siphoning some of those away. I think all around it's just a better situation. She did go Mahomes and Stroud fairly close together. I'm not sure I would have done that. That's if you're going to take a backup quarterback, maybe take one late. Don't burn 2 of your first 5 picks on quarterbacks. You can only start 1. Also went with 3 tight ends. Jalen Ferguson I think that's fine. Freiermuth also would have been fine if she just chose him. Obviously I'd rather have Ferguson. Taysom Hill, I actually don't mind either. I don't mind any of her tight ends. I probably would not have taken all 3, maybe 2 at most. And then she's also got Singletary, Jaleel McLaughlin, Denver running back. She doesn't have great running back depth, in my opinion. Barkley and Pacheco, I think, are great starters. I'm not sure I'd be starting the other 2 in any given week. At receiver, beyond CeeDee, she's got Zay Flowers. I mentioned this about Bateman earlier. I don't love the Ravens receivers for fantasy. I just think you're going to have a lot of disappointing weeks just because of the way they spread the ball around, the way they use running backs. Lamar's running the ball with his legs, so you're just not going to get a ton of consistency there. Romeo Doubs could be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay. It goes back to the other guys we talked about. You're going to have good weeks. You're going to have bad weeks. Curtis Samuel, we don't know. He's always injured. He's in his 7th season or whatever. I don't even know how old he is. How old is he? Yeah, he's 28. He's getting up there. He's a big question mark. Brandon Cook, same thing. He's older, always injured. So I'm going to give Kate a B. I like CeeDee. I like Barkley. I like Pacheco. Mahomes, Ferguson. Not a whole lot of depth here, though. That's the problem. Unless some of these guys hit unexpectedly, I think she's going to be scouring the waiver wire for some better people. Let's talk about Jimmy's team here, procrastination. James chose to keep only Mark Andrews for his 2nd round pick, which I think is fine. I think he's probably one of the only people that actually paid up for a player, though, as a keeper, meaning he probably could have drafted him in the 3rd round. And chosen not to use the 2nd round on a keeper, but it's fine. He also took Lamar in the 1st round. That is a big reach. Even for a predominantly Ravens fan league, I don't think anybody else would have taken Lamar there, especially when you had guys like Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison and Devontae Adams still on the board. I probably would have taken any of those guys over Lamar easily. Then he went Diggs as his 1st receiver. I mean, Diggs is on a new team. Diggs really fell off the end of the season last year. A lot of question marks there. I'm not really sure what to think about that. Devonta Smith I do like. I think that's a good pick. wide receiver 2 for the Eagles. Keon Coleman, rookie receiver for Buffalo. We got Hollywood Brown, who's now in Kansas City. He's also hurt. Xavier Legette, I did not like. He was a first-round receiver pick this year in the draft, but I didn't like his draft prospects. And then Ricky Pearsall, another rookie receiver, this one for the Niners. So I would say at receiver, a lot of question marks here. Devonta Smith, to me, is the only one that you can probably be comfortable with, and even then he's going to have up and down weeks, right, because A.J. Brown's the number one there. So you've got Diggs, who's on a new team, Hollywood, who's on a new team, Coleman, who's a rookie, Leggett, who's a rookie, and Pearsall, who's a rookie. I think he's going to struggle there. Quarterback, he's got Lamar, and then he took Tua in the ninth. Quarterback, he'll be fine. Lamar will probably do it, and Lamar's always done. We'll have weeks that, get you 50 points. We'll have weeks that get you 15. It just depends what kind of week it is. If the running backs, if Derrick Henry runs in 3 touchdowns and the Ravens win, Lamar is going to have a shitty week. Running back, Najee, Tony Pollard, Trey Benson, he's a rookie. I don't even know who this is. Ray Davis, oh my goodness. Literally never heard of him. Probably speaks more to my lack of knowledge about all the rookies, but I thought I was pretty familiar with all the fantasy relevant ones. Like Trey Benson, for example. I do know that he was a decent prospect coming out of the draft, or coming out of college, so he's got a chance, but he's going to be behind James Conner. He might spell him a little bit. Tony Pollard on a new team now in Tennessee. He's going to be competing with Tajay Spears for snaps. I think Spears is probably the more talented of the running backs, honestly, at this point. It's a bad offense as well. Najee Harris is what Najee Harris is. He's kind of boring. Jalen Warren's probably the more explosive of the 2 running backs in Pittsburgh. So I really don't like Jimmy's receivers. I really don't like Jimmy's running backs. Andrews and Lamar, that's a great stack. He's good at the onesie positions. Everywhere else, I'm gonna say a lot of potential holes there. So I'm gonna give you a C, Jimmy. You might be the only C of the draft, unfortunately. I think you made some questionable picks here, but it's not the end of the world. All right, let's finish with our prior year champion here, JT. So JT chose to keep Nico Collins and Rachaad White. So Rachaad White cost him a 7th. Nico was a 10th. Nico, great pick. Potential to be, and more than likely will be, the wide receiver 1 in Houston. So to get that for a 10th round pick, great value. Rachaad White, Rachaad White's a really boring, unexciting running back. But he's going to get a ton of dump offs. He's going to have a great finish for fantasy purposes. He's probably going to be, top 12 at the position, if not better. I think he probably finished last year, RB5 or 6. Excuse me there. So, elsewhere, he's got Garrett Wilson. Started first pick there, the last pick of the first round. Marvin Harrison. I'm not overly thrilled about Garrett Wilson this year. I think he, if Aaron Rodgers is truly healthy, then Garrett Wilson will have a much better year than he had last year. I don't know why. He's a really talented player. He just doesn't excite me. Maybe it's just because he's on the Jets, and the Jets have always been bad, at least for the past 20 years or so. Marvin Harrison, number 1 receiver prospect coming into this year's draft, was drafted accordingly by Arizona. I think he's going to have a great season. Does he return value for your second-round pick? Remains to be seen. If he breaks all the rookie records, I wouldn't be surprised, but he still might not even be worth the second-round pick, even if he does. Kincaid, Metcalf, McLaurin. Let's just focus on the receivers for now. So Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Nico Collins. Honestly, that's a really strong receiving core. You only need to start 3 of those. You can pretty much guarantee 3 of them are going to hit, if not more. So I think he's going to have really strong receivers every single week. At running back, Zamir White, Rachaad White, kind of similar players, actually. Zamir White's probably going to have a bunch of dump-offs. Brian Robinson, actually kind of like his pick there. Going to grind the ball out there. Jaden Daniels, I was eyeballing him. I do like that pick as well at quarterback. The rest of these guys are all depth pieces down here. Rookie running back. What's his first name again? I can't remember. Yeah, Kamani Vidal for the Chargers. I think actually has a really good shot at having some work later in the season. He's going to be behind Gus and JK to start, but Gus is getting older. JK's always hurt, so he could emerge. Rico Dowdle, he's going to have probably a lot of work. Him and Zeke are probably going to split the carries in Dallas. And then Bucky Irving, behind Rashad White. Rookie, yeah, I don't think he's going to really do much to Rashad White. So I would say he's definitely weakest at running back here. Rashad's probably a good number one. Zamir's probably an okay number two. Brian's probably an okay 2-3. So definitely the weakest part of his team. I do like Jaden Daniels there as a pick. A little bit risky. I was definitely eyeballing him too. If I hadn't gotten Jalen Hurts, I would have probably targeted Jaden Daniels. He's a quarterback that's going to run the ball a lot, which we've seen has value from guys like Lamar and Jalen and Josh Allen. So potentially high upside there. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then Dalton Kincaid, I like that at tight end. So, outside of running back, I think JT's team has a lot of potential, has a lot of upside. So I'm going to say A, definitely for JT, based on his draft. And I think that'll do it. I think the fantasy season is not won at the draft. I think you can potentially lose it at the draft, but I don't think you win it at the draft. I think it's often won in the trenches, waiver wire pickups, free agents. Maybe the occasional trade. I know we don't do a whole lot of trading in our league, but generally, unless your team miraculously stays healthy all year and all your players are hits, you're probably going to be playing the waiver wire. So I think that's it, guys. Might do some more of these throughout the season. We'll have Chad on next time. He couldn't make it tonight. Maybe we'll do a week 1 preview here soon. Try to get people on. But until next time, thank you for watching.